The Netflix live-action adaptation of Alice in Borderland is absolutely phenomenal. It masterfully blends intense action, nail-biting suspense, and heart-pounding thrills, keeping viewers on the edge of their seats from start to finish. In this gripping series, the characters are forced to compete in deadly games where survival is never guaranteed, making every moment tense and unpredictable. The combination of high-stakes challenges, complex characters, and a visually striking world creates a truly immersive experience that's hard to look away from. The show is absolutely worth watching. And once you start, it's nearly impossible to stop. You'll likely find yourself binge-watching the entire series in one sitting. Each episode is crafted to leave you wanting more, with suspenseful twists that keep you hooked from beginning to end. The writing is sharp and engaging, weaving a compelling story that balances tension and character development perfectly. The acting is excellent, bringing depth and authenticity to each character and making the stakes feel even more real. Alice in Borderland's second season is fantastic as well, taking everything that made the first season so gripping and amplifying it to a whole new level. The stakes are higher than ever, pushing the characters to their limits and forcing them to confront even more intense and inventive death games. The season introduces a range of new challenges that are as thrilling as they are unpredictable, keeping viewers constantly on edge. With intricate plot twists, deeper character development, and adrenaline-pumping action, the second season delivers everything fans loved about the first, while expanding the world in exciting and unexpected ways. This is one of those shows that starts strong and only gets better as it progresses. Each season builds on the last, raising the stakes, deepening the characters, and delivering more suspense and excitement. If the first two seasons are any indication, there's every reason to believe that season 3 will be just as thrilling, if not even more intense and unforgettable. This is a show you absolutely don't want to miss. From its heart-pounding action to its clever, high-stakes storytelling, it is the kind of series that grabs your attention from the very first episode and refuses to let go. If you haven't seen it yet, now is the perfect time to dive in. You're in for a treat. The Alice in Borderland anime adaptation is fantastic as well. While it's relatively short, it's definitely worth checking out, especially for fans of the series. The anime captures the intense action, suspense, and psychological tension of the story, delivering a thrilling experience in a compact format. Even in its brief runtime, it manages to bring the characters and high-stakes games to life. The Alice in Borderland franchise completely blows Sword Art Online out of the water. Sword Art Online is boring, bland, and not worth anyone's time. The pacing drags endlessly, the writing is sloppy and full of glaring plot holes, and the characters are one-dimensional and never develop. In comparison, Alice in Borderland is thrilling, intense, and smartly written, making Sword Art Online feel like a tedious slog with no redeeming qualities whatsoever. It is baffling why anyone would ever choose to watch Sword Art Online when there are so many genuinely good shows out there. Sword Art Online is the kind of anime that only manages to impress people who have no concept of solid storytelling, or who are completely new to anime and haven't experienced anything better in their lives. For anyone with even a hint of taste or experience, it's painfully obvious how shallow and poorly executed it is. Sword Art Online's writing is notoriously awful. This lack of preparation is painfully obvious in the series, which is riddled with plot holes, inconsistencies, and sloppy storytelling. The result is a disjointed, uneven narrative that often feels chaotic and underdeveloped, leaving viewers frustrated rather than engaged. The Sword Art Online fanbase is terrible as well. They're toxic, rude, and painfully defensive, treating the series as if it's the greatest thing to ever exist. Their obsession and over-the-top praise are genuinely embarrassing, especially considering how flawed the show actually is. The fans refuse to admit that Sword Art Online has any flaws. To them, it's a flawless masterpiece, and anyone who dares to disagree is dismissed as someone who didn't pay attention. Their refusal to acknowledge the show's glaring issues is both frustrating and absurd. Avoid engaging with Sword Art Online fans. It's truly embarrassing how some people proudly declare themselves as Sword Art Online fans. They might as well just announce, "I have terrible taste in anime, please make fun of me." Claiming fandom for a series this flawed is more of a punchline than a point of pride. Skip Sword Art Online and go straight for Alice in Borderland instead. Whether you watch the anime series or the live-action Netflix adaptation, both are far superior to Sword Art Online in every possible way. Tighter storytelling, higher stakes, more compelling characters, and non-stop thrills. In this video, we're going to dive into the anime series, explore what makes it so great, and break down how the characters should tackle and survive the deadly games they face.
Arisu, Karubi, and Chota are transported to a parallel world called Borderland, where they must win deadly games to survive. In this video, I'll break down the Alice in Borderland anime anime series and explain how to beat the death games. The anime begins at night with Arisu talking to his two friends, Karubi and Chota. Arisu wishes they could go someplace that they've never heard of to escape their boring lives. Fireworks suddenly begin. Even though it's 4 in the morning, there's a bright flash of light in the sky. Arisu, Karubi, and Chota then wake up on a beach. They go to the city, but it's completely abandoned. Arisu, Karubi, and Chota break into a store. They see that the food has the same expiration dates as yesterday. Most of the food in the store is rotten, but the booze and the canned stuff is still good. Chota thinks that this is all a dream, but Karube pinches him in the face and it hurts, so it's clearly not a dream. Arisu somehow feels very excited, even though he doesn't have a clue what's going on here. Chota agrees with Arisu's sentiment, since they're finally free at last, and nobody is there to continue hassling them. The characters leave the store, but they should take as much food as they can carry with them, since they don't know when they'll get their next meal. During the night, Karube thinks it's time to face the facts. Everything that's happened so far might actually be real and not a dream. Arisu and Chota don't care though, since they're enjoying themselves. The characters hear music in the distance and head towards the sound. They go to a festival and eat the food there. This is where the first death game begins. It's called Good Fortune, Bad Fortune. A total of 4 players have been registered. Karube attempts to leave the festival, but a woman suddenly appears and tells him to stop. The woman shows Karube that there's an invisible barrier surrounding the place. There's no turning back since the barrier will disintegrate whatever it touches. It might be possible to climb up and jump over the barrier, or dig a tunnel and go underneath. There could also be another entrance or exit somewhere, so the characters should look around and see if they can find anything. The difficulty of the first death game is 3 of clubs, and the rules are explained to the group. All players must draw 1 fortune. You win when all players have safely drawn a fortune. If 1 or more players have not drawn a fortune before the lanterns go out, then it's game over and everyone dies. The woman introduces herself as Shibuki. She says how the clubs mean that this is a relatively low-risk game, and the number indicates level 3. Since it's a low-level and low-risk game, as long as everyone works together and doesn't overlook minor hints, they should all make it out alive. Until the game is finished, none of the characters can leave the area. The clock has started, so it's time to move. Arisu tries asking Shibuki a bunch of questions, but she refuses to answer. Karubi is the first to draw a fortune. This is a bad choice. Wait for someone else to be the guinea pig and go first, so you can see what happens to them. If I was in Arisu's position, then I would make Shibuki go first. If she makes a mistake and dies, then at least it's not me or one of my friends who gets killed. Karubi gets a really great fortune. All it says is, South looks good. Karubi realizes that this isn't Shibuki's first death game, and she says that she's seen people die. Karubi wonders why Shibuki is playing more death games if she's already played and made it out alive before. Shibuki says that she's in the same boat as the others and doesn't know what will happen. Chota goes next, and he only gets slightly good luck. There's a math problem on the fortune, and the rules mention that players who have drawn a fortune featuring a question are required to give their answer out loud. Chota says the answer is 18, but it turns out to be wrong. 15 is the actual answer. Incorrect players will have to face flaming arrows equaling the difference in their answer. 3 flaming arrows come flying towards Chota, but he narrowly avoids getting hit. Chota should have made sure his answer was correct before saying anything at all. He was already told that this is a death game, so there are definitely going to be severe consequences if he gets the answer wrong. Furthermore, it's never stated that you can't ask for help, so someone else should have assisted Chota in solving the math problem. This also shows there is no invisible barrier on top, so the characters can try to climb up and jump out. Shibuki goes next, but Arisu says it's too dangerous. However, there is a time limit, so everyone will die if they don't do anything by the time the lanterns go out. It's time to face reality, but it's too much for Arisu to take in and he can't think straight. Shibuki gets a problem as well, and Karubi helps her solve it. So this proves that helping other players solve their problem isn't against the rules. The group should have been working together and combining their efforts from the start. Shibuki says that her answer is 30, but she's totally wrong. The real answer is 450. This means that 420 flaming arrows come hurtling towards the characters, and they try to find cover. Arisu is so scared he can't move, but Karubi gives him motivation and believes in him. Chota gets hit in the leg by one of the flaming arrows, and his body catches on fire. Karubi puts out the fire with water from one of the festival stalls. Karubi gets pumped up and pulls out the arrow from Chota's leg. It would have been better to leave the arrow in because pulling out the arrow would make Chota bleed more and might cause additional damage depending on the type of arrowhead. Chota could have used a table for protection against the arrows. Arisu picks his fortune next. He gets an impossible question that nobody could ever answer. Arisu thinks hard about everything that's happened so far. He gets it now and says that the answer is 6.9 billion, but he is way off. Arisu tells the characters to watch out for the arrows and they'll come from the north. Arisu deduces that the characters were never meant to get the questions right. That's not the point, and you don't have to get the right answers to win this death game. Figuring out the real purpose was the actual game they were meant to play. The previous fortunes mentioned exactly where the flaming arrows would come from. It's very simple once you know the secret. Arisu guesses that the order of the fortunes was rigged, so it doesn't matter who went first or last. The characters run south and avoid all the flaming arrows. They find an old well, but it's filled in with dirt. Kurubi digs out the dirt with his hands and discovers a hatch. He opens the hatch and the characters all climb down into a safe room. They get congratulated for winning the game, and the characters start to celebrate. Everyone gets a 3 of clubs playing card and a visa that says how much longer they can stay here in Borderland, which is what the world they're in is called. Shibuki tells the others that everything she knows is all based on rumors and guesses. Nobody knows anything for sure in this world. Borderland is home to many people, and they take part in death games held after sunset. Beating the death games earns you a visa, which lengthens how long you can stay here. For example, the 3 of clubs game earned the characters 3 days on their visa. The group encounters another player. He can't take it anymore and wants to stop playing. The player has no time left, and a laser comes from the sky to kill him. So if a player's visa is up, then they will die. They have to keep playing and winning more death games to survive in Borderland. Arisu dreams about his past life, and we can see that Kurubi is a bartender. Arisu and Chota go to the bar he works at and they talk. Back in the present, Kurubi found a fishing rod and caught fish for the characters to cook and eat. The group could go to a store and see if they can find food. You can eat some foods a little while after they've expired. Kurubi plans to play another death game tonight since they need to get used to their lives constantly being on the line. Chota's leg is injured and he can't do much, so he'll be left behind. Shibuki decides to stay with Chota so he won't be alone. Chota feels guilty for holding the other characters back, but Arisu tells him to stop worrying. Arisu is through with moping and judging people. He's determined to make it back to the real world. Arisu and Kurubi go to an apartment complex for their next death game at night. They run into several other players. The game is tag and the difficulty level is 5 of spades. Another player explains that spades games are all physical challenges, so it's a good thing Chota didn't come. The time limit for this game is 30 minutes. The person who's it will begin their search in 5 minutes. There's a single room with an unlocked door. The goal is located inside the room. In order to win the game, the players must enter the room before time runs out and touch the goal. The game will be over if time runs out or if the it player manages to kill everyone else. The apartment building will self-destruct when time runs out. Explosive mines have been strategically laid out around the perimeter so the players can't leave the area. Players can move between floors from the central, southern, and western staircases, as well as a single elevator in the middle. It would be smart to go to the top floor so the characters have the high ground and a vantage point. Taking the elevator isn't a wise choice though. You'll be trapped in a confined space with nowhere else to run or hide if the killer comes after you. The death game begins and the killer is armed with a machine gun. The best way to beat the killer would be to hide from him. The characters can't run away since there are explosive mines surrounding the area. Kurubi tells the other players to work together so they can all find the goal quickly, but yelling would attract attention to yourself and reveal your location to the killer. There's no need to risk your own life to look for the goal. You can simply wait for another player to do that. A girl named Usagi climbs to another floor, so you don't have to use the staircases or the elevator. The building is way too big and there's less than 10 minutes left, so the characters don't have the time to try every door. The killer is wearing a horse mask, so his vision is obscured. The other players could try to sneak up behind the killer and take the gun from him. Kurubi runs ahead and gets separated from Arisu. Kurubi uses a fire extinguisher to disorient the killer, and a wrestler tries to fight the killer, but gets shot since he had another gun. Attempting to fight the killer was the right thing to do. Machine guns don't have infinite ammo, so the killer has to stop and reload sooner or later. That's when he'll be vulnerable. Unfortunately, nobody could have known that the killer had a second gun. Arisu works out where the goal is. This entire game has been one big distraction since the killer doesn't need to kill anyone. He just needs to make sure nobody makes it to the goal. But he can't stand outside the correct door or it would be too obvious. There's only 1 minute left, so the killer is guarding the goal right now. Kurubi attacks the killer and knocks him away. Arisu opens the door and goes into the room. However, he discovers that the game can't be finished alone since 2 buttons must be pressed at the same time and they're too far apart for one person to press. Arisu could take his shoes off and throw them at the 2 buttons at the same time. Another player has a gun and shoots the killer's gun away. If this guy had a gun this whole time, then he should have used it earlier. This also goes to show that outside weapons are allowed in the death games. The characters should remember this and bring weapons with them next time. Arisu yells for help and Usagi comes. Together, they each press a button and win the death game, right as the time is about to run out. The killer's head explodes since the game is over and he lost. The characters celebrate. Arisu and Kurubi go back to Chota and Shibuki. Arisu lays on the ground and appreciates his life. Kurubi tries to start a taxi, but it doesn't work. There's a flashback flashback scene and Karubi asks the other player why he saved him. The other player doesn't respond, but he says that the radios still work in this world. The taxi's radio suddenly turns on and a message notifies people to go to the beach. Karubi wonders what beach. Chota admits to Shibuki that he's scared since his visa expires tomorrow and he's not as strong as the rest of the characters. Shibuki is scared too and reveals that she didn't go with Arisu and Karubi that previous night because she was afraid of dying. Shibuki wishes to go back to the world she came from. Chota and Shibuki still try to enjoy themselves while they have the time. Shibuki tells Chota about playing her first game, which was a Two of Hearts. The hearts are psychological games which are designed to break the player's will to live. There were 4 train cars in total, one of which was pumped full of a lethally toxic gas. The game was to get through all 4 train cars with only 3 canisters of air, which means that Shibuki was 1 canister short. Shibuki was so terrified and only won the death game by chance, since she used up all of her air and the last train car didn't contain gas. The train cars don't seem to be very long, so it might be possible for Shibuki to hold her breath and quickly run through one of the train cars without needing another canister of air. The average person can hold their breath for about 30 to 90 seconds. Shibuki was wearing high heels, so she should take those off to run easier. Shibuki thinks she won't survive much longer in Borderland, but Chota is glad that Shibuki is here today. Arisu, Karubi, Chota, and Shibuki go to the next death game in a botanical garden. The game will last 10 minutes and there are several tools on a table. The characters should take some of the tools with them in case they need to use them later. Furthermore, they have to wear collars and headsets that track their eye movements. The difficulty of this game is a 7 of Hearts. As mentioned before, Hearts games are designed to break the player's will to live. The game is hide and seek. The rules are explained. One player will be a wolf and the other 3 will be sheep. The sheep should hide from the wolf. If the wolf lays eyes on the sheep, their tracking sensor will activate and that sheep will become the next wolf. There's a 3-second grace period whenever this happens, so the new sheep can run away and find a place to hide. In other words, the characters will have to go after each other. When the 10-minute timer runs out, whoever is the wolf will win the game, and the sheep collars will explode, so there can only be one winner in the end. Forcefully removing your collar will kill you. The mistake here was trying to play as a team. In a flashback scene, Arisu asked Usagi if she wants to team up, but she said that she prefers to work on her own. Situations like this are exactly why it's better to not play these death games with people you're friends with. It would be a lot easier to kill strangers than your friends. Chota is chosen as the first wolf. He looks at Arisu, so Arisu is now the wolf. Arisu looks at Karubi, and he becomes the new wolf. Karubi looks at Shibuki, so now she's the wolf. Shibuki flees from the others. The characters fight one another to try and get the wolf. One way to win is to become the wolf and don't open your eyes for the rest of the game. That way, you won't give the wolf to anyone else since you're not making eye contact with them. The other players can't kill you since they won't get the wolf. So you just need to take the beating and wait until the time runs out. Hiding is a great option too. Arisu eventually becomes the wolf again and hides. Chota confesses that he's weak and Arisu feels guilty. Arisu says he's done with this game. He'll wait by the entrance and anyone who wants the wolf should come out so he can give it to them. Arisu doesn't want to win if it means sacrificing his best friends. The others were thinking the same exact thing and don't want to live if their friends will die. They all stay hidden until time runs out. Their collars explode and Arisu is the only one who survives since he was the wolf. There wasn't much else any of the characters could have done. They can't all look into a reflection at the same time and transfer the wolf amongst themselves to trick the system into thinking there's multiple wolves. There's a 3-second delay and you need to make direct eye contact with another person, so that won't work. The only possible solution is to cut the collars. It was stated that forcefully removing the collars would kill you, but you wouldn't be doing that here. You would be disconnecting the collar from the headset, not removing it. There were tools such as saws and pliers provided for the players at the beginning of the game, so they probably needed to be used later. It's the whole Chekhov's gun principle. Details in a story should be relevant and contribute to the overall narrative. Irrelevant elements shouldn't be included. This plan is risky because the collars could explode if they were cut. But if the players are going to die, it's worth a shot since they don't have any other options. Maybe the wolf player's collar won't explode, so they can try cutting it first. If this solution works, the wolf can transfer their status to the next sheep and they can cut their collar as well. Then the group would need to repeat that until only one player remains. The final player doesn't need to do anything since they'll be the wolf and win the game. Karubi was smoking and the cigarette he dropped sets the botanical garden on fire. Arisu makes it out and is devastated after losing his friends. Usagi comes to try and talk with him. Arisu doesn't respond, so Usagi walks away. Finally, the anime ends with Arisu promising to kill whoever made these death games with his own bare hands. Usagi extends her hand towards Arisu and tells him to survive with her. As we just saw, playing these death games with people you know won't turn out very well, so Arisu should go solo from now on. And that's how to beat the death games in the Alice in Borderland anime series. Do you have any better strategies or methods? If so, let me know in the comments below. There's a few Alice in Borderland spin-offs too, such as King of Diamonds, Alice on Border Road, and Alice in Borderland Retry. Moreover, Alice in Borderland received an 8-episode live-action adaptation in 2020 on Netflix. The series received positive reception from critics and audiences. A second season of Alice in Borderland was announced only 2 weeks after the first season was released. What did you think of Alice in Borderland? Additionally, which movie or anime should I do next? Leave a suggestion and be sure to also check out some of the other How to Beat videos on this channel. Well, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a future upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.